Hello, and welcome to Rethinking Our History, where we seek to shed a light on events that have been forgotten and covered up, and to make us all question how much do we really know about our history? I'm Felicia.
And I'm Ian, and we are here to reveal all the sordid details of history that have been swept under the rug. Get ready to get angry, be curious, and maybe have a laugh or two as we rethink our history.
Hello, friends.
Hey guys.
Thanks for joining us for lesson 23. This is another true crime story, not as gnarly as H.H. Holmes was, but
Yeah. I don't think much is.
it's one that, as you can see by the title, is the inspiration for the 1992 cult classic Candyman.
Oh boy.
But before we get into that, let's get the business out of the way.
That might be my next favorite one.
If you found us here and are a fan of the paranormal, give our flagship show, The Paranormal Lovers, a try. Over 100 episodes about everything from the Brown Mountain Lights to the very much still active cult 12 Tribes, which we found out because there's a little thing that somebody had at my job, and I looked, and it was like, oh, there's one in Asheville. And I said, motherfucker!
They got a sweet bus.
It's not. Thing's like 50 years old. Ain't sweet no more. We will be attending Hotlanta this weekend. Pew, 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 pew.
It's here.
The Hotlanta Paranormal Convention on Lanier Island on Lake Lanier from March 14th through the 16th. We will be staying
there,
in Gainesville due to the history of racial violence in Forsyth County. If you're brown, recommend doing that. If you would like to support the pod, we have a couple of ways to do so. First, we have our Patreon at patreon.com/paranormal lovers, where for just $5 a month, you get early access to unedited videos of both shows, as well as stickers and other swag. We also have a merch store at theparanormallovers.threadless.com. We will have new designs up in the next few weeks, so any you may want now, they may not be there for much longer.
Get them while they're hot.
If you would be so kind, please give us a follow, like, or subscribe on the social medias, Facebook, TikTok, and Instagram and YouTube. Instagram. Just search for The Paranormal Lovers in the search bar. And finally, if you have a personal story, be it true crime, historical, or paranormal, or a topic request, email us at theparanormallovers@yahoo.com.
Shoot us what you got. I still have to look up that thing my cousin told me when we first started.
Heller?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. All right, folks. I got a fucked up story for us today. Again, not as bad as H.H. Holmes, but it's fucked up in so many reasons for so many ways. If you have ever seen a Spectrum commercial, you probably know who Tony Baker is. If not, don't walk to Instagram and give him a follow. He does these skits about people who, when confronted with white on black violence, always say, well, what about Chicago?
I thought you were going to say, I never knew.
No. That's a good one. I never knew. No, this one's, what about Chicago?
Mm-hmm.
Every time I hear somebody say something about Chicago, all I can think is this case.
Yeah.
I believe I first heard it on Morbid, but I, like many elder millennials, grew up with Tony Todd being our boogeyman, or rather, Candyman. Rest in pieces, Tony Todd.
Right.
But probably had no idea that it was actually based off of a true crime.
Yeah.
Now, elder millennials or Gen X probably remember hearing something about this case, but I had no idea until a couple of years ago. Public housing has been used since the 16th century in Bavaria. In the U.S. today, these places are seen as dens of violence, drugs, and all manner of dangerous things. Now, this is not the episode where we go down the rabbit hole of how we got to this point, but let's say that, of course, it's all linked back to slavery and white supremacy.
Yeah.
We had our own towns, communities, businesses, land, farms, etc., and they were burnt down and taken away from us. And then they made these places, as I like to call them, black reservations.
Yeah.
Everything from the way these buildings were designed to where they were located is designed to keep and oppress people oppressed, but I digress. Speaking on the way they were designed, in 2020, Samantha Hartus posted a nightmare inducing video on TikTok that showed how there was a large hole behind the mirror in her apartment, a hole that led into the apartment next door. Viewers of the viral video were quick to point out the similarities between the online video and the hit movie. And then they learned, well, that's because in 1987, Ruthie Mae McCoy would be the victim of murder. And her murderers, they crawled in through her bathroom mirror. Ruthie was born one of 8 children in Hughes, Arkansas. Almost said Arkansas.
Arkansas.
I had to say Arkansas.
Carry on my wayward Sean.
On January 13th, 1935. But during one of the greatest migrations in U.S. history, the family moved to the south side of Chicago. This is the time the Dust Bowl was hitting the Midwest and the Depression was starting. It was hard for a large black family. Well, actually, I guess she was born in 35, so it was like as the Depression was ending.
Mm-hmm.
But still, it was hard for a large black family to make ends meet in the cities during this time. In her 20s, she began showing symptoms of mental illness and had her only child, Vernita, when she was 27. After being abandoned by the child's father, Ruthie legitimately hated men. Like, it, from that point on, she was like, men ain't shit. And you know what, Ruthie? No offense, Bill. She was right. Men ain't shit. Although her family could tell she was suffering from something and she would be hospitalized several times, it would not be until she was older that she was diagnosed with residual type schizophrenia. And that is a type where, like, you had schizophrenic episodes when you were younger, but you don't have them as much now as you're older.
Right.
But you're still dealing with the effects of those from when you were younger. Not sure why it took so long. Her family reported that she would talk to herself and spontaneously curse at strangers in the street. Due to her struggles, Ruthie was not able to hold a job for longer than a month and would end up in one of the Abbott homes building in the ABLA homes, housing projects named for 4 people, hence the acronym. This was a 15-story Y-shaped apartment building with dark, malfunctioning elevators and pitch black hallways. Now, these are not the Cabrini Green housing, but it is located close by. She lived there from 1983 until she was murdered in 1987 at the end of the hall on the 11th floor in apartment 1109. She had been living with her daughter, her boyfriend, and their kids, but due to Ruthie's deep hatred of men, they moved out in 85 or 86, leaving her alone. During her last hospitalization, she was referred to Mount Sinai Psychiatric Hospital. There, she was able to get approved for SSI, and when she received her first check, she had almost $2,000. Now, that was a pretty penny for someone on the South Side in the 1980s. This money was going to help Ruthie get out of the housing projects and into a safer living situation. But first, she wanted to spoil herself a little bit. She got some new clothes and a few things for her home, including some new furnishings. It wasn't a huge spending spree, but from the outside looking in, it looked like Miss Ruthie had hit a windfall. On the night of April 22nd, 1987, the night of my mother's 29th birthday, in fact, and I would have been 6 months old, so no surprise I don't remember this shit.
Right.
But what gives me pause now is the stories. And when I was writing this, I was like, shit, I was the age that Mama was living in the projects in Raleigh.
Right.
My mom told me about how one guy followed her in the house when she was bringing groceries in one time. She's like, I just want to talk to you. I just want to talk to you. And she picked up a knife and she was like, get the fuck out.
Right.
Another day she woke up and there was a man laying in her yard dying from a gunshot. And she was like, ain't my fucking business. She's like, I'm like,
damn.
This is the same time that this woman was getting murdered in these projects in Chicago.
Yeah.
Like, it's weird how all this shit, like, crazy connections, man.
Yep. The
All right.
80s were crazy.
The 80s were rough. Anyways, on this night, Ruthie made a call to 911. She told the dispatcher that, quote, they threw the cabinet down and they want to come through the bathroom, end quote. Although at the time the dispatcher didn't understand what she was trying to say, they sent a patrol car to her address. Unfortunately, they were not aware that this was a break-in, as the dispatcher had marked the call as a disturbance. which could explain their lack of urgency to get there quickly. But considering that many more calls came in reporting yelling and gunshots, I feel like they probably just didn't want to go down there,
Yeah.
which is something that I've seen, not just like, obviously, these are drama. Hang on. Nice crack. Um, Obviously, these TV shows that I like to watch are dramas, but it's like, yeah, there seems to be sometimes there's certain places cops don't want to go because they're like, it ain't safe there for me either.
Right.
And it's like, well, you don't want with the gun and the Kevlar. Go on. Go on. This can be supported by the fact that the four officers showed up, but when they knocked on the door, they got no response. A couple officers went to the office to get a key, but when they tried it, it didn't work. Now, me personally, if I was a cop and I got a call about someone coming in through the mirror, and then at least two more reports of screaming and gunshots coming from Ruthie Mae's apartment, I'm going to bust down the door.
Yeah.
April 23rd, Ruthie's daughter, or April 23rd, Ruthie's neighbor, Deborah Lastly, called on the police to do a welfare check on Ruthie. She told them that Ruthie would usually greet her twice a day, once in the morning, once in the afternoon, but she had not seen her that day. Once again, officers were sent to her apartment, this time with security guards. The police initially wanted to break down the door, but were talked out of it by the security guards, citing the possibility of getting sued.
Yeah.
Like, okay, I'll get sued. I'll get sued if it saves somebody's fucking life.
Right.
Take the fucking lawsuit. I get it. We are some litigious people in this fucking country. Take the fucking lawsuit if it saves somebody's life.
Sure.
Deborah, not deterred by the police's unwillingness to try harder, contacted management. The office sent two people out to Ruthie's apartment who, surprise, were able to get the door open by drilling through the locks.
All right.
Y'all see how easy that was? But what they saw when they opened the door would scar them. Ruthie was found in her bedroom, lying on the floor in a pool of blood from 4 gunshot wounds. She had one hand over her chest and was only wearing one shoe. The room had been ransacked. She had been there for at least 2 days, and the smell of decomposition had already started to fill the air.
Oh.
Ruthie's murder was briefly covered by the Chicago Tribune due to the strange method of entry the killers used. Otherwise, like many murders of black women in Chicago and the country as a whole, she probably would not have received any coverage. Within a week of Ruthie's murder, 2 people were murdered. 2 other people were murdered in the Abbott homes. And while the general public was horrified to hear about killers crawling through the wall, the residents of ABLA were not surprised at all. In an article for the Chicago Reader in 1987 by Steve Bogira, residents of these apartments had been dealing with these mirror break-ins for over a year before Ruthie was murdered. Many
Wow.
families had taken to putting heavy furniture up against the bathroom door at night to protect themselves. I'll sleep in my fucking car
Yeah.
at a lake somewhere. Like, get me to motherfuckers call. No,
Crawling through the walls.
actually better
Nope.
yet, go back and watch Home Alone and get some Kevin McAllister ideas and set up some fucking booby traps for people trying to crawl in through your fucking mirror.
Yep.
You want coming through my mirror? Here's some nails in your face.
There's some dynamite.
A janitor.
Tripwire dynamite. Boom.
Well, it is an apartment building. Like,
Yeah, but I mean,
it's a 15-story apartment building, sir. We don't need to be blowing shit up. We don't need to be blowing shit up. Do we not remember watching the World Trade Centers get hit by planes and getting hit by planes?
you got a point there.
Yeah, all I can think of is if somebody was to blow off some dynamite, that 15-story Y-shaped building's just going to go kaboof, and then everybody's dead. Like,
I was thinking more Minecraft where it just takes out a chunk.
yeah.
But
Reality and fantasy, sir. I learned the difference. A janitor interviewed stated, quote, "You get desensitized by what goes on here every day. It's animalism over here that's prevailing. That's the prevailing life condition of the people. Animalism, where you worry about where you worry about those who are stronger and you care nothing about those who are weaker," end quote.
Wow.
And it was so easy for people to use the space to enter next door. Though there were pipes behind the cabinet, which was held on by 6 little nails, it was a space about 2.5 feet wide. In some area of the building, people would climb the pipes to go up and down from apartments.
So there's no telling which, apartment it came from then, huh? Or he came from.
Well, no, they're pretty sure that
They.
they know that the people that killed Ruthie came from the apartment next door
Yeah.
because they found evidence of them being next door.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, they were like, I was like, which is like actually seems really cool if we're like talking about kids.
Yeah.
You know, like, hey, I'm gonna go to my friend's house, and they just like climb up the pipes up to their friend's bathroom, like, hey, buddy, come over to play some Nintendo. You know, that's kind of one thing I could picture, like me and my friends doing that as kids, you know.
Yeah.
But more often than not, people using this weren't coming over to play Nintendo or
No.
the Xbox. Oh, yeah. Often gangs would rent apartments next door to each other so that they could have a quick escape route should the police show up. Even local law enforcement officers say it was an effective escape as you had to be pretty small to squeeze between the pipes, and even the smallest cop has to carry a belt.
Right.
At the time of Ruthie's murder, there were 3,600 residents in Abbott homes. There were 33 two-story row houses and 7 of the monstrous apartment buildings.
Jeez.
The average income at the time was less than $5,000 a year for residents in the projects.
That's crazy.
In 1986, residents of the ABLA were twice as likely to be victims of violent crime than anywhere else in Chicago. And considering Cabrini Green was closer to downtown, Abbott homes did not get the coverage that other buildings would get. That's why Cabrini Green was such, I guess you could say, a household name.
Right.
And why people know that so well. And
because it was close to downtown.
Is that where it takes place in the movie?
Yeah,
It's been a long time since I've seen Candyman.
In Candyman, she lives in Cabrini Green.
Yeah, and they said that, like, you know, it's closer to downtown. There's more businesses, more affluence down there. So, and the police station's closer.
Right.
So they get like more coverage out there.
Yeah.
And with the Abbott homes being so far away, people were just like, meh.
Right.
It's all the way out there. I don't want to go all the way out there.
Yeah.
I think the saddest part of this case is how the system failed Ruthie and continues to fail these communities today. If she had gotten the help she needed during any of her previous hospital visits, maybe she could have lived somewhere else at the time.
Sure.
She was making moves to get out of that apartment and those projects. She was finally getting the help she needed at Mount Sinai Psychiatric Center and even asked several times to be moved, at least to a lower floor. But no matter how hard she tried, it seemed the system was set up so she would fail.
Yeah.
2 suspects were arrested after they were seen moving new things into their home. 19-year-old Edward Turner, 19-year-old Edward Turner was arrested in his home a few days after the killing. 25-year-old John Honduras was found hiding under a bed in an apartment 1 block from Ruthies. Unfortunately, the charges were dismissed due to a lack of evidence, and no one else has ever been charged with her murder. Ruthie's case is one that highlights the disadvantages of these housing projects. With no through streets, these projects feel more like compounds, making it prime real estate for gangs and other criminal elements. They are also built outside of the nicer and wider neighborhoods where there is access to food and jobs easily. If they are lucky enough to have food in the area, it is fast and unhealthy. Then, as property values drop, less money is given to schools in those communities, cutting programs that would help children get a leg up and get out of the projects.
Yeah.
And then they end up being a 52-year-old paranoid woman living on the 11th floor of the most violent building in the South Side. They actually said this building was more violent than Cabrini Green.
Yeah. I'm
which,
sure.
like, well. Ruthie had her struggles, but she was trying to lead a better life, and she wasn't wrong to be paranoid. Everything I'm sure she witnessed or experienced in her life showed her that where she lived was not safe. I just wish people could have listened to her sooner.
Yeah.
So what do you think about the murder of Ruthie Mae McCoy and the Candyman?
It's sad.
Mm-hmm.
Much like the movie. The movie is very sad, but...
And there is a Ruthie in the movie.
Yeah.
I think she was like his first victim.
Uh,
supposedly, or she was
I
like one
want to
of his
say she was the
victims.
next door neighbor. Like
Yeah,
she
but she
played,
was like somehow. I'd read in an article when I was doing the research that she had been like,
or was it the first victim?
she was like Ruthie. Somebody was like his first victim, and she was like, I don't. There was a McCoy in there too.
Yeah.
I actually think the protagonist, their last name was McCoy because in the new one, the protagonist, his last name is McCoy.
Hmm.
So they tied Ruthie into the Candyman
Right.
movie franchise, I guess it is now, since we got two of them.
Yeah.
But yeah, I
Makes me
mean,
want to watch it again.
I know, right? I'm like, shit, I might have to watch. We haven't even seen the new one.
No.
They came out with a new one. We ain't even seen it because they came out with it after we had a kid. And now I don't do horror movies anymore.
Right.
They scare me, folks. I'm not afraid to say it.
Yeah.
I have bad anxiety. Doo-dah, doo-dah. But yeah, I don't know. This reminded me of an episode of SWAT that I had watched.
Mm-hmm.
Again, I understand it's a dramatized TV show. I get it. But there was an episode where they had to go into a projects, and these projects, the buildings were like connected with walls.
Mm-hmm.
There were like walls in between the houses. And like, so it was literally like a fucking compound. There was like one street in and one street out.
Yeah.
And the gangs would like block it off and shit. And they ended up having to like bust through one of the walls to get out. That's what it reminded me of.
Yeah.
I kind of think that's how it is. And I mean, I don't know. I still want to go to Chicago South Side because like shit like this happens, but like because of what has happened in the past.
Yeah.
These aren't bad people that live in these projects. These are people that have no choice but to do what they got to do to survive.
Yeah.
Could have not killed Ruthie Mae. Could have not killed Ruthie Mae. But
Yeah.
well, all right, folks. We hope you enjoyed this episode. I know it was a sad, shorter one, but I hope it makes people think about how things are connected. No one wants to live like this, but when the system is built to keep you there, it's going to take major action from the community to help them get out.
Yeah.
We will see you guys next week. We love you. Bye.
Love you guys. Bye.